wish to testify, and we'll work with your schedule as much as we can. So with that, I'm going to reopen the public hearing on Senate Bill 1586 and ask Kyle to give us an overview of where we are.
Yeah, thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Senate Bill 1586, we do have the intro version and then the -4 amendment. The -4 was up and discussed at the last meeting. Just was going to call attention to the committee in the meeting materials. There is a more in-depth section-by-section description of the -4. Also included are some background slides, just a few on the semiconductor research and development tax credit. That's available under existing law. And part of the reason of putting that in there is that the new proposed research and development tax credit for advanced manufacturing is really almost a copy and paste of the same language of the semiconductor, but the credit would just be for advanced manufacturing. So the mechanics of the semiconductor tax credit will function the same as the advanced manufacturing with additional changes. So just wanted to highlight what's up there in the meeting materials for you, Mr. Chair.
Great, thank you. With that, we're going to start with our first panel, which is Michael Held from Business Oregon and Andrew Desmond from the Oregon Business Council. Or Senator Sollman, do you want to come up and give us an overview?
And they can totally come up. In order to save time, they could come up. Chair Broadman, members of the committee, for the record, I'm Janine Sollman. I am the state senator for Senate District 15, which includes areas of Forest Grove, Cornelius, Hillsborough, and the Rock Creek area of Western Washington County, Oregon's Culture, Commerce, and Chips District. Thank you for keeping the hearing open to hear additional public testimony. The Jobs Act is a statewide response to Oregon's stagnating economy rooted in the recognition that our manufacturing sector is in a recession, and the jobs manufacturers produce are the foundation of the middle class. So I'm going to have some folks come up here, but the Jobs Act is a package of tools that is built on the work of this body that we put in motion in 2023 with the semiconductor package. The tools are separate and distinct, a mix of state and local incentives, permitting reforms, and addressing Oregon's well-documented problem of not having enough industrial sites in the size or location industry requires. The bill includes the following: the research and development tax credit that builds on Oregon's existing semiconductor credit, a totally optional, locally determined 5-year property tax exemption for capital equipment put into the service by advanced manufacturing firms in Oregon, and is modeled on Oregon's longstanding exemption for food processing equipment. An improvement to the regionally significant industrial sites program to support job creation in rural Oregon, streamlining the state's permitting process to reduce burdens and create more certainty for businesses, which will result in more jobs. This bill creates a place for Oregon businesses to grow and for new businesses to put down roots and become part of the fabric of our state. Now, looking at this bill, these are not new policies. We have extensive process over the years that resulted in these recommendations that are before you to support Oregon's competitiveness and create middle-class jobs. This builds on those efforts. I'm not the technical expert on the specifics, which we will have folks coming up, those that follow me, but I just want to say that in closing, note that this has statewide support in the record for this bill. League of Oregon Cities, Association of Oregon Counties, Oregon Business Council, Oregon Life Sciences, University of Oregon, National Electrical Contractors Association, National Association of Minority Contractors, Oregon Business and Industries, the Oregon Coast Visitors Association, Oregon Economic Development Association, the Manufacturing Council of Oregon, and many more partners from every corner of the state. This is the time to figure out what needs to happen to pass the Jobs Act for our state so that we can fund the services that people and give people a shot at the middle class. This is a bipartisan, bicameral bill that sends a strong message of support with over 1/3 of the legislature, 1/3 of the legislature sponsoring this bill, including 16 co-chief sponsors. At some point, the facts are just the facts, and we must make decisions based on those facts that are in the best interest of public interest, especially when those decisions are hard and the trade-offs are real. I encourage you to ask the experts that follow with your questions, and once they are answered, I hope this committee leads with the clarity and vision that this moment requires. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Chair Rodman. I was just wondering if you could give us an update, and I know it was said, maybe it was touched on the other day, but about where Metro is at, the Metro Regional Government.
Chair Broadman and Senator Taylor, they are in support. You heard from Metro Councilor Juan Carlos Gonzalez.
Right.
They also have a record on the record from the council from the Metro Council President.
Remind us what are they agreeing to?
Well, they are in support of the Jobs Act, and they have been at the table. And we do have some folks from Metro that will come up here as well. You can chat with them and ask your questions. But they have been, we have been talking about the land use because they are the regional government that oversees this land. And so the compromise that is before you in the -4 is a result of those conversations. And because it was a different bill in the base bill. And that does bring them in support. They do have essentially 1,400 acres that will be returned to Metro for the planning, because again, this land is a unicorn. It sits outside of their jurisdiction right now, and they do not have, they do not oversee the land in this area.
Thank you.
Thank you. And remind us, Senator, are we going to see another amendment?
It's a technical fix on the land. It's very much a technical fix. And then I believe they're doing some tightening on the research and development tax incentive.
And the credit?
And the credit, right.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Colleagues, we're going to ask Representative Levy, Senator Nash, and Representative Javadi to come up and provide a couple of quick remarks. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Chair Broadman, Vice Chair McLean, and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Bobby Levy, and I represent House District 58, most of Umatilla County, all of Union County, and all of Wallow County. I'm here today in support of 1586, specifically Section 14, which strengthens and clarifies the regionally significant industrial site program. The city of Pendleton is home to the Pendleton UAS range, which is not only a center of innovation of excellence, but also a regionally significant industrial site. This fall, the city of Pendleton reached out because due to the way the RSIS program is structured, businesses operating at the UAS range don't all meet the 25 employee threshold to qualify for the RSIS tax incentive. However, the UAS range hosts over 35 companies and startups employing roughly 300 people. By updating the definition of the eligible employer at a regionally significant industrial site to recognize cumulative job growth at a site rather than evaluating each employer in isolation, my folks at the UAS range will be able to qualify for the benefits of what we believe was the true intent of this program. For rural Oregon, this matters tremendously. Regionally significant industrial sites are often one of the few tools we have to attract traded sector investment at scale. If we want Oregon, and especially rural Oregon, to remain competitive for advanced manufacturing, logistics, and trade sector investments, our tools must reflect how modern industrial development actually occurs and the realities of entrepreneurship in rural areas. At the beginning of session, I had the opportunity to go to an open house that they had to let us all meet the 35 different business sectors that they have at the UAS. And it was attended by almost 200 people. A significant amount of Confederated tribal members were there because they also have a direct investment in that and having it be successful. And we had people from all over the state at that open house. So I was pretty impressed with the knowledge and depth of the people that are working there and how much they're touching areas around our whole state. So I urge you guys to vote for this. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Representative.
Thank you, Chair and Vice Chair McLean. My name is Cyrus Javadi. I'm a state representative and representing Oregon's North Coast, and happy to be here. When I go home on the weekends and I'm standing in line at Fred Meyer, people generally don't ask me about semiconductor research credits. But they do ask me about the crab season, about tourism, about housing, and about whether or not we're just going to keep raising taxes on hardworking Oregonians. So I want to explain why someone from a fishing and tourism community cares about a bill like this, or why they should. When I talk to a local constituent about this, I don't start with, hey, this is about advanced manufacturing incentives. I say, look, our coastal economy is strong, but it's narrow. We rely on tourism, we rely on natural resources, we rely on small businesses. So when the broader state economy slows down, we really feel it. And when the state struggles for revenue, rural communities usually feel that too. What I like about this bill is that it's making sure Oregon has industries that are generating some serious payroll. That kind of payroll that funds schools, roads, public safety without constantly reaching in to the same family's pocket. If Washington County lands another high-tech manufacturing campus, that doesn't just help Hillsborough. It strengthens the overall tax base of the state. And when the tax base is stronger, the pressure to solve every problem by raising rates goes down. On the coast, especially specifically for Hillsborough, we have families that have dual income earners, one's working locally in Tillamook County, one who needs to travel all the way over at Hillsborough. We take our wives and husbands on dates to Hillsborough. We depend on suppliers and contractors from Hillsborough to come on out. Most of the visitors that we get on the coast come from Washington County. So when we're investing in Washington County, when we see a place like that growing and expanding, it benefits us not directly but indirectly, and we need those. We need more investments like that. So honestly, that really matters to the district. And now I'm not naive. People hear tax credit, they think of corporate giveaway. I'm a small business owner. I run a dental practice when I'm not here, and I understand that it feels like what it feels like to carry that overhead, to worry about payroll, and to wonder if the state's going to do anything with your tax revenue that actually benefits you. Now, I won't have a semiconductor fab in Tillamook County. That's just not who we are, but I do want my kids and your kids to have the option of a high-paying engineering job in the state if they want it. I want Oregon to compete in industries that will still matter in 20 years, and I want rural communities to benefit from a stronger statewide economy instead of being left behind when we fall short. If we want to protect working families on the coast, this is a great way to do it. We need a state economy that's big enough and strong enough to support the smaller communities that depend on it and also help contribute to it. So honestly, that's what got me to being a strong supporter of 1586. I know tax policy, research credit policy, and credit policies are complicated, especially when they interact with other priorities like land use, but I think when you look at the cost-benefit analysis, it's pretty clear to me and to my community what the benefits will be.
Thank you, Representative. Appreciate you being here. Senator.
Chair Broadman, Vice Chair McLean, members of the committee. For the record, Todd Nash, Senate District 29, representing a large portion of Northeast Oregon and extending all the way here to Marion County. I did have the opportunity to take a couple of tours of the site that this would be developed on, and of the 1,700 acres, there was reasonably about 900 acres of very nice farm ground. And as somebody that's rooted in agriculture, I certainly don't want to see that taken out. But there are times when we need to have siting of such places, and this happens to be one of them. Maybe if we could start Oregon all over again and have a grand planning scheme, that we wouldn't develop Hillsborough where it is right now. But Hillsborough is where it is, and that high technology infrastructure is where it is. There's going to be times when we need to develop in Eastern Oregon, maybe a new confined animal feeding operation, maybe housing. But we need to be strategic about when we do that. There has been tens of thousands of acres taken out of production in Eastern Oregon for solar siting, and hardly a peep here in this building about it. But this is a time when, and this is a location in which we've had significant investment from global industry into Oregon. We're known as that place that is the Silicon Forest. if we don't keep advancing, if we don't keep investing in Oregon, if we completely retract and don't go forward, there's not a need for the trailblazers. Those sort of things are a luxury from what we do as industry. And if we do to that industry what we did to the timber industry and what we've done to so many other industries, we retract and we become a third world state, if you will. So that's the reason I support this. Not a big fan of taking out what is really prime agriculture. I hope you can scrape up some of that soil before you site it and bring it out to Eastern Oregon. And we would welcome that. So with that, I'm going to wrap up my testimony. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Senator. Appreciate it. With that, we're going to start with Michael Held and Andrew Desmond. And gentlemen, you have about 5 minutes each.
Yeah, good morning, Chair Broadman and Vice Chair McLean, members of the committee. My name is Michael Held, and I'm the Regional Services Manager at Business Oregon, and I'm primarily here today to talk about Senate Bill 1586 and the expansion of the R&D tax credit for advanced manufacturers. Just for the record, Business Oregon does not have a position on the bill. We're here today to provide context for how this bill interacts with the existing R&D tax credit for semiconductors and to offer some technical expertise to the committee. And I will keep my comments to under 5 minutes. As written, we view Senate Bill 1586 as an expansion of the current R&D credit, with much of the language mirrored directly from House Bill 2009 passed in 2023. But before I get too far into my comments, I do want to address some of the conversation from Monday's hearing that the choice to create new statute language with Senate Bill 1586 versus expanding the semiconductor tax credit statute language was a drafting choice that Business Oregon requested so as to not to disturb or confuse existing program rules, forms, applications, or certification processes, and to ensure that these respective credits are for different end users. Like the semiconductor tax credit, Business Oregon would administer and oversee the certification process with our friends over at Department of Revenue handling the filing and processing of tax returns to apply the credit. For the certification piece, we review the firm eligibility, the qualified research expenses, and affirm valid company attestations. And we're confident we can successfully administer SB 1586 as laid out with a very, very modest fiscal to process the increased number of potential eligible entities. Thankfully, we already have a foundation from which to build, including administrative rules, review processes, forms, FAQs, education materials for the R&D credit that exists now. So with just slight tweaks to these materials, we are confident that we can stand this program up efficiently and successfully. Just a couple other notes. With the expansion of an R&D credit, like I said, we do expect a considerable but manageable uptick in firms to certify. Just in the 2 years since we've administered the R&D credit, we have certified 17 companies in 2024, 33 in 2025, and we expect modest increases over the next few years. And we've also seen companies of all shapes and sizes within the semiconductor sector able to benefit, and we consider that broad sector level participation a good thing. And since SB 1586 structurally mirrors the semiconductor credit, it's reasonable to assume we'd see similar firm diversity and over time increase in firm participation. And lastly, we also want to offer just a few thoughts related to rulemaking, specifically around questions related to determining firm eligibility. At a minimum, we would want to review rule or have rule clarify both the firm inclusionary language standards and the excluded activities that are spelled out in sections 2 and 11 respectively. We would also consider further defining primary business to determine company eligibility. There are several ways we could address this question, including looking at firm-specific eligibility thresholds. So, for example, we can look at NICS codes, overall revenue percent, headcount, asset utilization, or capital investment, or a variety of other factors. You could consider all of these, or maybe a combination to qualify a manufacturer's R&D activity. But it'll be important as we get into rulemaking, as always, to engage a wide range of stakeholders to ensure that we're refining and defining these terms clearly. We would obviously include business and industry in that engagement, economic development practitioners, local and regional governments, and the public in that process. So in closing, we're confident we can administer SB 1586 and welcome any questions.
Great, thank you. We'll go to Mr. Desmond, and then Mr. Held, please stand by if there's questions.
Sure.
Hi, everyone. Andrew Desmond here. I'm not sure if you can see me. My camera went off, and it's looking like the camera was shut off by someone in your room, but I also have poor internet. So if we have to, I'll just go on without camera.
Yeah, you're good. We can see your slides.
Good. Okay. So Chair Broadman, Vice Chair McLean, members of the committee, my name is Andrew Desmond, and I am Director of Economic Development Policy at the Oregon Business Council. Back in 2022, I led the staff work supporting the Semiconductor Task Force and was deeply involved in conversations about the semiconductor R&D credit at the time. So next slide, please. So someone gave testimony Monday that R&D incentive effectiveness is dependent on credit design, and we fully agree. So back in 2023, we gave testimony that Oregon's previous R&D incentive would sunset in 2020 or in 2017 was poorly designed. First of all, it was just too small to matter. The $1 million maximum award was just too small to influence where companies were thinking about investing in R&D. The second piece was that it was not refundable. So the $1 million max award meant that the credit would be most meaningful for smaller kind of innovation-oriented businesses, but many of those businesses are either pre-revenue or unprofitable. And so without a tax liability to offset, they couldn't use the incentive to grow. And so we were kind of left with an ineffective incentive, which is why the legislature let the program sunset. Next slide, please. So we designed the semiconductor R&D credit to address those concerns. So we gave it a $4 million max credit value, so 4x the previous limitation. The credit's equal to 15% of the incremental increase in R&D spend, which aligns with federal definitions in IRC 41. And then we gave it refundability. But specifically for more refundability, the smaller you are. So for companies with employees less than 150, they would get 75% refundability of the credit. Going all the way up to these large companies between 500 and 3,000 employees, they only get 25% refundability. Next slide, please. So I believe that Business Oregon is actively working on calculating the ROI of the semiconductor R&D credit, though it's still quite early. So I'm not sure where they are in that. But we have strong confidence that the program as designed is working. So as you just heard from Michael, there's been quite a bit of interest in the program. As we understand it, the program is actually oversubscribed, which we think is a strong early signal that the incentive is desirable and is working. And also there's a strong academic research-based finding that well-designed credits are generally effective in increasing research and development and innovation activities. So you see some of the numbers here in front of you, which I won't repeat. Two actually interesting points that you'll see in the bullets below. One is that research and development tax credits have been found to increase both the quality and the quantity of entrepreneurship over time, and that's in part because you're giving non-dilutive capital to these startups. And research has also found that nearly all of the state's R&D gains come from competing away R&D from other states, which kind of highlights the competitive context that we find ourselves in. So next slide, please. So as Michael said, the new advanced manufacturing R&D credit mirrors the semiconductor credit exactly. So the same credit value, or the same maximum credit value, the same tiered refundability, the same way of calculating the R&D tax credit, the same biennial budget caps, which Senate Bill 1586 proposes to increase to $100 million, a $10 million increase. It's just simply administered as a separate program per business Oregon's request, as Michael just suggested. Next slide, please. So just speaking to a couple of amendments, so we have a -4 and a -5 is forthcoming. The -5 stipulates that biennial revenue cap will extend to a sunset date, which is extended out to 2036. And the -4 also clarifies that there won't be any double dipping on credits between semiconductors and advanced manufacturing. So if the semiconductor firm is getting the semiconductor R&D credit, they won't be able to go and also get an R&D credit under the advanced manufacturing credit, and vice versa. Next slide, please. So I'll just conclude that R&D is Oregon's superpower, and with the right incentives, we can do a lot more of it. So we know that Oregon is one of the centers of the universe in global semiconductor R&D, but we have a lot more going on around the state. Daimler Truck North America is headquartered here, and they do all of their next-gen carbon-free vehicle R&D here. Panthalassa is a really, really exciting wave energy startup that is doing tons of research and development to figure out how they can better harvest wave energy to power data centers. We think that the Knight campus and soon from the Knight Cancer Institute is going to unlock a wave of innovation and entrepreneurship that would, again, be very much demanding and pulling on these types of incentives. Agility Robotics, which spun out of OSU, has the potential to lead the 5 trillion humanoid robotics market, and they have a huge amount of research and development that they need to do, from going from robots that are just simply stocking shelves to doing things that are much more complex. And then we have our Mass Timber Tech Hub, which thinks that they can create 100 startups over 10 years, creating new biomaterials for construction applications. This is all to say that there's a world of innovation across Oregon, in both urban and rural Oregon, and with the right incentives, we can unlock a lot more of that. So that's all I have.
Great. Thank you so much. Colleagues, any questions for Mr. Held or Mr. Desmond related to the tax credits? Not seeing any questions. So I think I understand the forthcoming -5, as far as either of you understand, contains the ongoing cap of biennial tax credits. Mr. Desmond?
Yes, I'm not sure if it's in the -4 or the -5, but I believe one of those amendments extends the sunset date to 2036.
Okay. Great.
And it would be extending the sunset date for both the semiconductor credit and the advanced manufacturing credit.
Great, thank you. Not seeing any other questions. We appreciate your testimony. Next, we'll call up Ariel Nelson and Annalise Kohler.
Good morning, Chair Broadman, Vice Chair McLean, and members of the committee. For the record, I'm Ariel Nelson, Government Relations Manager for the City of Hillsborough, here to provide an overview of the land section in the Oregon Jobs Act.
And good morning, Chair Broadman and members of the committee. My name is Annalisa Curler, and I'm the Legislative Affairs Manager for Metro. And just to quickly answer Senator Taylor's question from earlier, Metro is supportive of the land use compromises as reflected in the -4 and -5. Thank you.
We also have attorneys for Metro and Hillsborough available online and additional experts in the room should any truly technical questions come up. So as introduced, Senate Bill 1586 would have brought in 1,700 acres in North Hillsborough into the urban growth boundary to support advanced manufacturing and supply chain development. The -4 amendment does reflect the compromise between Metro and the city of Hillsborough. It brings in 373 acres into the UGB and designates the remaining acreage as urban reserves, meaning that any future expansion for that land must go through Metro's established regional planning process. We are also expecting that -5 amendment that contains very technical adjustments to how the land is described in the bill. So if you're looking at the -4, you notice it references boundary lines, roads, landmarks. It's some adjustments at that mapping level to make sure that the land in question is described accurately. The amendment also, the -4 also includes clear sideboards on how the 373 acres may be used. The land must be planned and zoned for industrial uses, specifically high technology and advanced manufacturing, research and development, and uses that directly support these activities. It may not be developed for standalone data centers, and additional uses, as you can see, are also prohibited. Here you can see the land in question. This is the map that is described in the bill. The yellow outline designates the 373 acres, and the remaining approximately 1,400 acres are shaded there in blue.
Okay, I'm sorry, Chair.
Please.
Thank you, Chair Bradman. I'm sorry. So the yellow outline that we see right here, that is the land that's being proposed to be developed.
Chair Broadman, Senator Shaler, that's correct.
Okay, so clarification, please.
Please.
Okay, so the outline of the multiple plots of land to the left, that's also in the light purple, whatever color we're calling that, what is that?
That is the remaining of the 1,700, approximately 1,400 acres that would be designated as urban reserve, if I understand the question correctly.
Okay, and so what will be if, let's say in 10, 20 years, et cetera, people wanted to develop that land to the left there, what would be the process for that?
So I can speak to it at a high level if we want to go into more detail, Metro, or the attorneys can describe it. But essentially, we would have to initiate a process through Metro's regional process, either through an urban a UGR process or additional processes to bring that in. And there's established process for that in Metro's statute.
Okay, thank you.
This slide just kind of zooms out and shows the regional context of the land within the entire Metro UGB. And here we have a map just showing the cluster of the Silicon Forest ecosystem in Hillsborough and radiating out into the region. And here you can see statewide presence of the semiconductor industry. And this last slide shows the data on the significant and declining losses due to lack of available land and Oregon's decreasing competitiveness in this industry. There are additional slides in the record that I encourage you to review showing the statewide impact of these lands on jobs, wages, and income tax revenue generated, including analysis done as part of the Senate Bill 4 process on these lands by Echo Northwest. So I encourage you to check those out, but with my remaining time, I'd like to address a few misconceptions that we've heard in prior testimony. First, data centers. This bill is not a loophole for standalone data centers. They are only allowed as an accessory to a high-tech manufacturer or supply chain facility. Hillsborough's most recent industrial code updates in the areas directly east already operate under similar code restrictions, and standalone data centers have not been allowed there. Second, modern manufacturers, high-tech manufacturers, depend on computing and data processing. Whether producing semiconductors or developing individualized gene therapy to treat cancer, accessory data processing and capacity is necessary and appropriate. Next, we've heard about infrastructure and resources. These lands sit directly adjacent to hundreds of millions of dollars in existing public and private infrastructure investment. It is well served. On water, previous testimony suggested that the Willamette water supply system, a project currently underway in the region, is being built because data centers are depleting local water resources. That is incorrect. The primary purpose of the Willamette Water Supply Program is ensuring that Washington County has a backup drinking water supply and fire suppression capability if our primary water source is damaged by a significant seismic event. On energy, you heard from PGE on Monday that future industrial demand is planned for. Yes, our state needs additional energy capacity and modernization, an issue this body is actively working on. But this land will not be developed overnight, and we have time and process to plan for increased demand. Finally, environmental protections still apply. We've heard concerns about impact to the watershed. Industrial users are either regulated locally by Clean Water Services or by DEQ at the state level. Data centers, at least locally, are not the largest water users. We can provide analysis on that. And contrary to recent social media posts, are not known to emit PFAS or forever chemicals into the water any more than a regular user, including a residential home. Finally, we must address the idea that this proposal is rushed or lacks public process. This land has been debated for more than 2 decades. It was originally designated urban reserve through Metro's regional planning process, initiated in 2006 and adopted in 2008 after extensive public engagement and hearings, followed by years of litigation, which brings additional process. In 2014, the legislature passed HB 4078, converting that land to rural reserve, which is why legislative action is now required to change it. In 2018, Senator Sollman introduced a bill to restore the urban reserve designation due to shrinking industrial land supply, again with public hearings and process. In 2022, as you've heard from the previous presenters, the state created the Semiconductor Competitive Task Force, which identified and vetted this land. In 2023, the legislature passed Senate Bill 4 and held 5 public hearings in the process. The record includes 448 pieces of written testimony, most focused on this land. Then, in the end of 2024, the governor's office, joined by Washington County and the city of Hillsborough, held a public meeting in Hillsborough before the governor ultimately chose not to exercise that authority, bringing us today and this bill. Opponents of bringing this land in have participated throughout each of these steps, engaging at the local, regional, and state levels. This is not a lack of engagement. It is simply a long-standing policy disagreement. The City of Hillsborough, Metro, and the coalition supporting 1586 are asking the legislature to make a policy choice. That choice is whether Oregon will provide sites for high-wage advanced manufacturing jobs, strengthen our economy, and remain competitive, or continue to fall behind other states actively planning for these industries. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Chair Bradman. I just have a couple questions. One is, can you walk me through, that was really helpful for you to lay out the history there. What about the public process? What kind of public hearings have been held to come up with this, what's being called this compromise?
We're in the process of those public hearings now. We've had a hearing on Monday, this hearing today. But
in Hillsborough, at Metro, I mean, what's the history of the public? Obviously, meetings occurred to come up with this, and I'm just trying to understand how were those private meetings? Were those held in a public forum? How did this compromise come to be?
So I can speak to the original bill, which has been a council priority and voted on in public hearings at the City of Hillsborough. We've also had several, we had a legislative agenda review with discussion of these priorities and pursuing this bill, and the current compromises within the direction of the council in terms of the city's priorities.
And this is a pretty big decision, Chair Brodman. I think it would be helpful. I would make a request of Metro and the City of Hillsborough to produce a document for the record about what the public meeting process was, so that, because I think there's some concern about when these meetings occurred and et cetera. So I at least would find that helpful. My second question, if I may, is there's a component in the amendment about job creation and what role, I mean, I don't know, will Hillsborough or Metro, I mean, how will this be reported back regarding, is this for the job creation? That's the expectation in the bill. I think that's more of a Hillsborough question than a Metro question, but.
Chair Brodman, Senator Taylor, thank you for the question. So in the land use system, we don't place job thresholds. As this land is developed, should existing state incentives and economic development programs be used, there are job and wage reporting thresholds for those tools that are already on the books. There will also be a public process for the 373 acres that is brought into the UGB. Hillsborough will have to update its local comprehensive plan and code, and that includes public hearings and input through the Planning Commission and City Council. And so there will be dialogue and opportunity for the city to be reporting out on the goals for the land with the land use designations mentioned, the land is very much targeted at high-wage jobs and industry. We have data on the record showing what those produce, the average income, both Hillsborough, Washington County, compared to the state. So it will be very much built into the future planning of this area.
Just one last question, please. Thank you, Chair Robin. So in the permitting, when people come and apply for the permit, will this be an upfront question of how many jobs will be created, and will that be documented in the public so that there would be okay, X companies coming, they plan to create 100 jobs, whatever it may be, and then there'll be some sort of an accounting and will it be a look back by the city of Hillsborough to say a set time and saying, okay, now in 3 years, we're going to go back and examine how many jobs they actually created, or does that happen every year? We're just trying to understand the process because, creating tax credits, lots of people come to us asking for tax credits, and we have to be very, very judicious and careful about handing out tax credits. And then there's these big, significant promises here about jobs. And so I'm just curious what the process will be ahead before. I don't want it to be an afterthought. I'm just trying to understand what is the process up front to know whether or not these companies are even taking this seriously and what the plan would be for job creation.
Chair Broadman, Senator Taylor, excellent question. So for the land use process, it will be based on what is directed in the bill and the statute, and then further refined in Hillsborough's code. So it will be, is this an allowed use? Is this a conditional use? There's no job reporting through that specific process. However, when Hillsborough, after that planning process, which tools or incentives, local and state incentives, are used to attract companies do go through additional public process through, depending on if the city wants to adjust its existing ordinance for existing programs or bring on new programs. And so that will go before council. And similarly, decisions about citing large things have a public process as well through, it's an economic development process. It's not in the land use system, but it goes through the council.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for Hillsborough? Ms. Curler?
I have no further comments. Thank you.
Okay, any questions for Metro? Great. Well, thank you both for being here. We may have more questions as the day proceeds. With that, we're going to continue with reopening the public testimony portion of 1586, and we'll start with Commissioner Pam Treese, Mike McCarthy, and Malik McKenzie. And folks, we're going to hold everybody to 2 minutes. I apologize if I have to cut you off. Thanks for being here.
I'll go ahead.
Yeah, please.
Good morning, Chair Broadman, Vice Chair McLean, members of the committee. For the record, my name is Commissioner Pam Treese, and I am here on behalf of Washington County. I'm here today to express the Washington County Board's strong support of the Oregon Jobs Act Senate Bill 1586 with the -4 amendment. I want to begin by expressing our sincere appreciation to Senator Sollman, the City of Hillsborough, Metro, legislative leadership, and the many stakeholders who work diligently on this proposal. Washington County strongly supports economic development and the creation of high-quality jobs that strengthen Oregon's competitiveness. Growing our economic base invests in people who get these high-wage jobs, creates value for local governments, building community resilience and stability. It also provides needed revenues to the state through by growing the tax base. We have been actively engaged with the bill sponsors, providing detailed feedback, raising implementation considerations, and working collaboratively to strengthen the proposal in order for us to get to yes. SB 1586 provides a strategic path to bring meaningful industrial acreage into the urban growth boundary and urban reserve, generating long-term economic opportunity and job creation in Washington County with powerful multiplier effects across the state. We greatly appreciate the decision to remove the enterprise zone provisions from the measure. Counties administer enterprise zone exemptions through our assessor's office. Therefore, any expansion or extension of those programs should be paired with clear cost recovery and mechanisms for local governance. SB 1586, as amended, reflects meaningful collaboration, thoughtful refinement, and strong leadership from Senator Sollman in bringing partners together to advance shared goals for long-term economic opportunity. We appreciate the partnership demonstrated throughout this process, respectfully urge your support, and you can refer to our written testimony for more information. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Mr. McCarthy, I'm going to ask Senator Starr to provide a little bit of testimony, and then we'll get to you. Thank you. Thank you for being here, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. For the record, I'm Bruce Starr. I'm the senator from Senate District 12. I am here to speak in favor and support of the work that our colleague, Senator Sollman, has done as it relates to creating economic opportunity in the Portland metropolitan area, especially in the west side of Portland, western Washington County. It's an area that I happen to know pretty well, having had the opportunity to represent the district for 16 years previously. As you look at the opportunities that this bill creates, I think it's significant. I think it's important. I had the opportunity to speak at the Oregon Business Summit in December. One of the things that I said there, and I think this bill helps to effectuate, is that I said when my colleagues across the aisle are interested in growing jobs and cutting regulations and creating economic opportunity for Oregonians, they will find friends on the other side of the aisle, meaning Republicans and Democrats can work together on issues like this. I think Senator Sollman has done a really good job of bringing people together. I believe this is a measured bill. As you've heard, and it's not the first time this conversation has been had, especially around the urban growth boundary issues in North Hillsborough. So with that, Mr. Chair, I appreciate the opportunity to slip in here and provide some testimony in support of the legislation. I'd urge you to consider it favorably and send it to the Senate floor so that we can have a full Senate conversation and vote on it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator. Mr. McCarthy.
Yeah, Chair Broadman and members of the committee. My name is Mike McCarthy. I'm a farmer and I represent Ag for Oregon. I'm going to take a little different tack today, and I'm proud to be here doing it. We are a pro-conservation group of farmers, ranchers, and forest landers. We oppose House 1586. The legislature this session has taken a particularly anti-conservation agenda. In the year 2026, states and nations that protect their farmland will have an economic and survival advantage over those that choose to cover their productive lands with buildings and asphalt. There currently are thousands of acres of land in the UGBs all over the metro area and all over the state that are vacant and can be redeveloped. We do not even know the total statewide. I feel like we are on different planets. On planet Earth, where I live, 34% of the world's farmland is unusable due to degradation, aquifer drawdown, lack of precipitation, development, rising sea levels, and rising temperatures. More farmland is unusable and lost every day, so fast it's hard to calculate. Globally, almost 2 billion people don't have enough to eat. 50% increase in global food production will be required by the year 2050 due to increasing population. In Oregon, we are doing away with the best farmland in the world that has precipitation and irrigation. Oregon is now an anti-conservation state. We expect and rely on the tech sector to lead the way for environmental and climate solutions. We expect and rely on the tech sector to lead the way for environmental and climate solutions, but instead sourcing, constructing, and energizing big tech and data centers is one of the largest greenhouse emitters in Oregon, in the U.S., and in the world. Oregon's economic advantage long-term will be by protecting our farm and forest land. Please oppose this disastrous bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. We have Malik McKenzie, or I understand there might be a designee for Malik.
Hi, it's me. Yeah, can you hear me, Chair Broadman?
Yes.
Thank you so much. Yes, I'm filling in for Malik today. So Chair Broadman, Vice Chair McLean, members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to testify today. My name is Damon Mottstory. I'm here on behalf of over 55,000 members and supporters with the Sierra Club Oregon chapter, here to voice our opposition to Senate Bill 1586. Colleagues and friends of mine have seen years of mass layoffs in the tech sector recently and the negative impacts that has had on marginalized communities and the trades. The U.S. saw over 100,000 jobs lost last month, with tech being responsible for the second highest amount of jobs lost. Further tech industry subsidies at this point is like fighting against a king tide as the industry is actively reducing their staffing. Furthermore, research from Oregon State University shows that the agricultural industry employs well over 500,000 people, making that industry part of Oregon's identity and one of our main drivers of economic output. It's a real risk that we're putting up here. The form of economic development put forth by 1586 does not meet the needs of the people of Oregon. Instead, we are in need of development that supports a just energy transition, as Oregon's electric grid infrastructure is incapable of supporting more large loads, and current manufacturing output of grid infrastructure can't keep up, as shown by a February 2024 USDOE report. It's also difficult to reconcile this proposal with the work that this same committee has been doing on 1507 to address Oregon's federal disconnect and protecting the stability of state revenues. In 1507, the legislature acknowledged the importance of safeguarding our tax base and ensuring we don't unintentionally undermine our ability to fund core priorities. But 1586 flies in the face of this by creating a very expensive and costly expanded R&D tax credit with significant long-term revenue impacts. The original R&D credit was narrowly crafted to position Oregon to compete for the CHIPS Act investments from the federal government, but 1586 broadens that approach to advanced manufacturing without the same level of federal matching funds, important guardrails like caps on refundability for very large corporations, and many more details. So we cannot evaluate this proposal in a vacuum. Every dollar committed to new or expanded tax credit is unavailable for essential pressing needs for the state. So we urge you to oppose 1586. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you so much. Next, we have Jody Weiser, Ray Kottner, and Karna Sheth.
Chair Broadman and members of the committee, I'm Jody Weiser. I'm speaking for Tax Fairness Oregon, a network of volunteers who want a rational and equitable tax code. There are numerous issues we have with various elements of this bill. It's pretty complex because there's so many parts, and those are in my written testimony, but there's nothing in this bill that is compelling, nothing that begs to be done this session. Its relating clause, however, gives you an opportunity to end all subsidies for data centers in this state. Prudent legislators in other states are speaking of ending their subsidies for data centers, or at least putting a moratorium in place. And if you look in the testimony under reports and my name, you will find a set of those headlines. We hope you will enact an amendment to this bill that ends our subsidies for these businesses in all three of our property tax exemption programs: the Standard Enterprise Program, in urban areas, the 15-year long-term Rural Enterprise Program, and the SIP, the Strategic Investment Program. All three of those tax breaks have been used for data centers. And those subsidies have grown from $330 million last year to over $450 million this year. The cost of these tax breaks is huge, and a third of that money is K-12 money impacting schools statewide. Neither California nor Washington states offers any property tax exemptions to data centers or cryptocurrency miners. Each state has a sizable sales tax. California doesn't even give that away, and Washington state sales tax exemption is limited to equipment and energy infrastructure. We need to stop our subsidies because we will still be the best tax place on the West Coast, even if we end these property tax breaks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you, Chair Broadman, Vice Chair McLean, and committee members. I'm testifying today in place of Ray Kottner, if that's acceptable. Ray is a colleague of mine. He was here Monday. My name is Mark Blythe. I'm Vice President of Technology Development for Kokusai Electric, a Japanese supplier of manufacturing equipment to leading-edge semiconductor chip manufacturers worldwide. I'm thrilled to report that we are currently building a development center in Hillsboro, probably one of the two wins over the past year. I personally led the site selection for this project, which also considered sites in Boise, Arizona, and New York. In order to attract major semiconductor investment, our industry needs a pipeline of land and shovel-ready sites. And due to the existing semiconductor infrastructure in Hillsboro and the surrounding area, Hillsboro is the area to designate this land as SB 1586 proposes. Furthermore, Hillsboro is internationally renowned as a city that can accelerate new semiconductor projects. We at Kokusai would like to express solidarity with our friends and families in the Oregon farming community. We owe you all a tremendous debt of gratitude for your many contributions to our economy and the fabric of our local and regional communities. You contribute immensely to our state and what it truly means to be Oregonians. At the same time, we would also like to express solidarity with our friends and families in the construction trades, hospitality, healthcare, local retail, and so on. Each new semiconductor job supports a multitude of jobs in these other critical industries. Our company is currently considering where to expand next. SB 1586 offers just enough incentives for us to choose Oregon. And the investment is modest in comparison with the investments made to the local communities by our industry. Please help us to choose Oregon, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Chair Broadman, Vice Chair McLean, members of the committee, thank you for this opportunity to speak. For the record, my name is Karna Sheth, and I am from Hillsboro. I'm here in opposition to Senate Bill 1586. Last Thursday, on February 12th, the EPA announced it will reject scientific evidence on the effect of greenhouse gases. The EPA will now no longer regulate factory emissions. Where in SB 1586 or the past, current, or future amendments are the provisions and state funding to replace this federal EPA protection? Before you do irreversible damage and irreversible harm to new land for development, should there be an EPA plan in place given this new climate? I also disagree with any property tax breaks for data centers. 3 weeks ago on January 29th, Beaverton Ventures LLC, owner of two data centers, PDX 11, PDX 12, lost their fight with the Washington County assessor and were forced to pay $3.5 million in property tax for failure to file a form. Not for oversight, not for forgetting, not because they were confused, but for plain being above the law and failing to file a form. I applaud the Washington County Assessor's Office for showing integrity and making sure that property tax breaks are only given to those who play by the rules. Data centers will find loopholes, and they'll find ways to get in here. I used AI's help this morning to find 8 consultant-ready ways of loopholes and strategies for getting data centers exclusive access with no jobs created. I'd be happy to share these papers with the committee. For the reasons of environmental protection, I'm against the land expansion of this bill, and for the reasons of data centers, I'm against the property tax expansion. Thank you for your time. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Next, I have Catherine Thomason, Tammy Carpenter, and Noah Marquis.
Chair Brown?
Yes.
While we were waiting for people to come up, at some point, is DEQ going to walk us through any of some of the things that he brought up at some point?
We can certainly invite DEQ here for their testimony on the bill and
just what the process would be.
Sure. I haven't seen anything that exempts anything in this bill from DEQ regulation, but I'm certainly happy to ask DEQ to come and offer comments. Welcome.
Good morning, Chair Broadman, Vice Chair McLean, and members of the committee. My name is Dr. Catherine Thomason. I'm speaking on behalf of MCAT and the statewide Consolidated Oregon Indivisible Network. I urge you to vote no on 1586 or significantly amend the bill. Besides the land use issue, which we are opposed to taking farmland out of rural reserves, the major point I have is the federal definition of advanced manufacturing includes data centers. And even without it, massive data centers attached to anchor businesses could fill this site and others. We need to address the huge hole in our revenue stream. Data centers are not major manufacturing industries, which give the biggest rate of return on investment at tax exemptions, with many high-paying jobs, unlike the job numbers, which are mostly janitorial and security in data centers. The largest center in Texas employs only 100 people. We cannot afford to continue allowing property tax exemptions and others to apply to data centers. We are paying statewide for this loss in revenue because the general fund pays 2/3 of K-12 education across the state. Looking specifically at Hillsborough in the 2026 budget shows that they still are receiving 55% of K-12 education funds from the state general fund, in spite of their increase in population, in spite of their increase in industry. Continuing to apply the enterprise zone exemption in these areas will continue to worsen our revenue deficit, which you already heard the numbers of. And it doesn't even count the fire districts, libraries, emergency services, and other services that are not being paid for locally. It's important to know that data centers will come to Oregon without incentives, without these incentives. So let's be clear-eyed about tax breaks and their repercussions in our state. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Tammy Carpenter. Not seeing Tammy Carpenter. Noah Marquis. Greg McPherson.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm Greg McPherson, Chair Broadman and members of the committee. I live on a Lynn County farm where I grow hazelnuts. Success in farming and any other business requires certainty. In 2007, when I served in the House, we launched a process for creating certainty for farmers and landowners on the future of lands outside Portland. This was needed because the soils north of Hillsborough are really high quality, much better than on my farm. The best of the best farmland would be rural reserves and other lands, urban reserves, and these designations would apply for 50 years. The process was contentious. It was resolved by the legislature in 2014 in a so-called grand bargain. That should have created certainty, but repeatedly since 2014, speculators keep trying to rip up the grand bargain. SB 1586 would grab 1,700 acres of rural reserves for development. Not a lot has changed since 2014. Speculators made the same claims then about Oregon's economy and the availability of industrial land as they're making now. But what has changed is the boom in data centers. These employ very few people and suck up vast amounts of electricity and water, making both more expensive for consumers. Those pushing SB 1586 claim it restricts data centers on the lands in question, but the bill allows them if accessory to other allowed uses. That's a hole they can drive truckloads full of computer servers through. The legislature has repeatedly said no to the speculators, and this purports to be a compromise, but it's really just tearing up a prior compromise. You need to say no again. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Do we have Matt West? And then followed by Matt, we'll have Cara Kelty and Steph Ruth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee, and especially Senator Taylor for your very insightful questions earlier. Thank you very much. For the record, my name is Matt West, and I am testifying today in my individual capacity in opposition to Senate Bill 1586. I've spent the better part of 2 decades working in environmental and semiconductor areas. I received my doctorate in chemical engineering and material science, developing renewable energy solutions, and I have spent over a decade working at Intel's R&D facilities before being recently laid off. So it is my hope that you view my statement today as that of an expert witness. Senate Bill 1586, as written, would be a tremendous mistake for Oregon from both a fiscal and environmental perspective. This bill would shortcut our traditional system and seize thousands of acres of productive farmland for the development of unspecified future projects. This is some of the highest quality farmland that exists in the world, and it is irreplaceable. Class 1 prime farmland soil. Once it is paved over, that farmland soil is irrevocably destroyed. And what would we be trading this priceless treasure for? Most likely more data centers. I know we've been talking about it a lot, and a lot of people say that that would not be the case. However, even all of the proponents today have mentioned the phrase standalone data centers. When you're discussing this bill, you could basically hire 20, 30 people as accountants, put them in a building, fill the rest of it with data centers, and that would fit the definition of not being a standalone data center. So that is essentially what we would get. And when you look at what this would end up being for the state of Oregon, the average data center, if you were to take the overall amount of abatement that we receive by the number of jobs based on the new Dash 4 amendment, which is a help, it is $200,000 in tax breaks per employee per year. Given that most of these people might make $100,000, that's just bad math, frankly. So I really don't think that's going to work out for us. I personally find it shocking that during a time when our state and cities are starving for resources, we're discussing more tax breaks for this. We should instead be discussing how to generate revenue. Even as little as 1 cent per kilowatt hour charge from these data centers would bring in over $60 million per year. 1 cent per kilowatt hour. I've done the math. It's pretty straightforward. I strongly urge you to not send this forward without stricter requirements in place. It will just funnel more resources away from the community and into the hands of the wealthy, and will turn productive revenue providing farmland into soulless fields of concrete and steel. The people are being asked for a real, tangible sacrifice and being offered vague hopes in return. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Cara Kelty?
Mr. Chair?
No, sir, if you come up and talk to staff, we'll get you on the list. Thank you. Cara Kelty? Not seeing Cara. Steph?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Good morning, Chair Broadman, Vice Chair McLean, and members of the committee. My name is Steph Rouse, and I am joining you from East Portland to oppose SB 1586. I am also Chair of Portland's Planning Commission, but I am obviously here in a personal capacity. As Metro Councilor Mary Nolan, one of 3 Metro councilors not supportive of SB 1586, shared on Monday, and as former Councilor Robert Liberty submitted in testimony, and I'll quote from Liberty, 14 months ago, after a year of technical analysis, Metro found there were 5,331 acres of vacant industrial land inside the regional urban growth boundary, 3,931 acres more than we are needed to meet regional needs over the next 20 years, end quote. As an East Portland resident, I can say that tracks. East Portland has significant vacant commercial land as well as industrial land. Let's work on that. And if you can hear someone in the background, that's my dog, Olive. The Gateway Shopping Center is the anchor parcel of a regional center in Portland, the regional center in Portland apart from downtown. Yet the entire parcel currently sits in fallow right next to a freeway and a max transit center. Prologis recently built a large warehouse and distribution site 3 blocks from Parkrose High School, yet the building so far sits vacant, which suggests to me that even if you build it, they won't necessarily come. Let's invest in efforts that help meet our needs with what we have, which is sufficient land, and that benefits all our communities across the region. I want to appreciate the excellent and overwhelming testimony you have received in opposition to SB 1586. Over 90% of over 675 pieces of testimony as of this morning oppose this bill. As Washington County Commissioner Nafisa Fye said on Monday, this is an issue that should not be rushed. The West Multnomah Soil and Water Conservation District noted in their testimony, once converted, farmland is permanently lost. SB 1586 also lacks the robust public process typically required for land use decisions of this scale and significance, end quote. I completely agree. And while I love being in person with you all on Monday and appreciate your time today, I don't know why we are having a land use conversation at the Senate Committee on Finance and Revenue. Thank you so much for your time and service to Oregon.
Thank you so much for being here. Matthew Albertson, Robert Bailey, and Charles Ortiz.
Good morning, Chair Broadman, Vice Chair McLean, members of the Senate Committee on Finance and Revenue. For the record, I'm Charles Ortiz, a farmer representing the Oregon Seed Council's past president and current board member. Today, I'm here to state Oregon City Council's strong opposition to Senate Bill 1586 in its entirety. Through our membership, we advocate for approximately 1,300 seed producers in Oregon. Oregon has had a carefully crafted land use system since 1973, a system created to balance land use interests in the state to prevent haphazard and unnecessary actions such as this bill, which proposes converting 1,700 acres of high-value farmland into industrial land. There's no rational justification to expand industrial lands in this region until available lands have been utilized. That's why we have a land use process to ensure order and balance in land use decision-making. If Hillsborough is allowed to circumvent the process here, there will be a long line of others that seek to follow that example. This bill is framed as the Oregon Jobs Act, but disregards the significant impact that agriculture plays in Oregon's economy. We ask that this committee not dismiss the important role of the agricultural community plays in our economy and the commons. Our ag production provides significant economic benefits to rural and urban communities alike in our state. Agriculture has been providing jobs and powering Oregon's economic engine for 167 years. This bill proposes to create jobs by taking away existing jobs. These lands are actively being farmed. Grass seed is more than just sports turf and recreational surfaces. It is also forage and fiber production, erosion control, cover crops, conservation habitat, and carbon sequestration. In 2023, grass seed was the fourth-ranked ag commodity in Oregon at $640 million. Oregon City Council urges the committee to strongly reject Senate Bill 1586. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you for being here. We appreciate it. Do we have Matthew Albertson or Robert Bailey? Not seeing any. I'm going to call Enrique Ferreira, Mark D'Arienzo, and William Lehman.
Hello, my name is Enrique Ferreira. Can I go?
Yes, please.
Well, thank you. Good morning. My name is Enrique Ferreira, and I'm a proud elected president of the Oregon Education Association, and I'm here to oppose Senate Bill 1586. Chair and Madam Co-Chair, thank you for having this hearing, this opportunity to speak to all of you. I represent 42,000 members across the state: Pendleton, Bend, Klamath, the North Coast, Hillsborough, Washington County, and we represent nurses, IT instructors, school bus drivers, counselors, and faculty in all community colleges across the state. Our mission is to unite the public education. And what I hear today is that we want strong jobs for Oregonians. And we do too. But you can't have strong economy or strong workforce when you are trying to deplete the educational system that supports a strong economy from the financial resources that we depend. We oppose Senate Bill 1586 as drafted because it chooses business over schools. If you want strong schools and strong economy, you cannot deplete school funding. Section 11 of the bill makes significant changes by saying that zone sponsor and a business firm are no longer required to provide for a school support fee to be paid in lieu of the property taxes that will otherwise be imposed on the business firm's facility for each year for exemption after the fifth year. Oregonians are struggling to pay the basic necessities every day. Affordability crisis is a front center in our lives, our students, and your communities. Our funding of our schools is paramount, and this takes away from our funding. This is a step backwards. Our legislators should be advocating for corporations to pay their fair share. They're becoming ultra billionaires off the backs of the working people of those communities, especially in Hillsborough and the rural areas of the state. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator